Hello and welcome to Walk the Pod, your daily walking podcast, tempting you away from your desk at lunchtime and into nature to stroll for just 10 minutes every day. Hello to people who have been eagerly awaiting Series 59 of Walk the Pod, and hello to people who are using Series 59 to get back into daily walking podcast listening. Quite a few of you in conversations over the summer have said, I haven't listened for ages. It's okay. You're not expected to listen to every single episode. Treat it like a river. Dip into it when you are out on your walks. And experience the joy of finding that walking is delivering physical and mental health benefits to you every time you do it. If you have a better afternoon when you've been for a lunchtime walk, don't be at all surprised, because it is a very powerful and simple way to reconnect with nature and the world, remove some of the stress and anxiety of the email inbox and the hurricane of chaos that can be work sometimes, and reconnect us with the sky and the birds and the wind today, which is really quite challenging. Coming to work this morning, I was blown sideways as I battled in, and you can probably hear in the background the susurrations of leaves. This series, thank you to the Walk the Pod Lunchtime Walk Club, who voted that we should talk about vulnerability this series. We're going to be reading Brené Brown's Daring Greatly, a wonderful book in which Brown does something called grounded theory research, in which surveys about, in this case, what makes us feel uncomfortable, shame, and so on, sort of created the research questions which emerged to be all about vulnerability and how vulnerability can be a wonderful practice to help shame die in the light. And Brené Brown also identifies that talking about shame can be something which in itself is very difficult for people to do, and they turn away just at the very word. And so she says in the same way that chemists do, if we can't measure something directly, we have to measure the things that are associated with it and see what they can teach us. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this. Very grateful to Cindy, who sent us our first voice note of this series. Cindy's going to share her thoughts on vulnerability with us now. And if you'd like to do so, very much welcome your thoughts too, by going to walkthepod.com and pressing the button marked Leave a Voice Note for Walk the Pod.
Well, hey, it's been a while, and I'm glad that we've got this really neat opportunity and community to engage real and meaningful topics like vulnerability. And I think one of the places where I have felt vulnerability the most is sharing my faith. There have been settings where it's like other beliefs seem to be received with more grace and respect, and me following Jesus was not. And those moments I felt exposed and alone, maybe misunderstood. And that could be heartbreaking for sure. And I've also seen how vulnerability in those spaces helps shape me, is shaping me, pressing me to even anchor more deeply in what I believe and just keep showing up with gentleness, even when it's not easy or reciprocated. And it's also been stretching and strengthening in such a positive way, reminding me that my hope isn't in people's acceptance, but just walking life out with Jesus. And so these are the moments that are tender, and they've grown me. And I'm even grateful for a space like this where we can name those really vulnerable places together.
Thank you, Cindy, particularly for leaving a voice note which makes clear some of the vulnerability that you have felt in various areas when being honest about your faith. And it's really, it is horrible to feel excluded because of anything, whether it be something you have control of or not. But that can be a time when we feel particularly vulnerable because we are being rejected by a group, potentially. So absolutely understand that. And my own experience with the church has been, it's difficult being a gay person and trying to engage with the church because they have only just voted to take the word dishonourable in relation to homosexual acts out of their official documentation, which I find astonishing in 2025. So there is rejection of people to Christians, and there is rejection of gay people by Christians, and there is a lot of acceptance amongst all kinds of people of all faiths and none of one another, and the fact that all these things are extremely difficult and stressful and unnecessarily hostile when they need not be hostile. So Cindy, I'm very grateful indeed to be friends with you across the pond, and for us to be able to share our various vulnerability and frustration with the types of faith that we are trying to engage with or not, and I can at least reach out to you and say, I accept you and your faith, and I know you accept me and my inability to engage with the Church of England because of its continual non-progressive stance on homosexuality, and we can be friends despite our sort of various frustrations with these things. And this puts us both in a vulnerable place, because when I can reject you because of your faith and when you can reject me because of my homosexuality, we put ourselves in a position where we can both be hurt. And so that's a very personal place to start, I think. So when I say, what does vulnerability make you think of, that's perhaps too opaque a place to start. What I really want to say to you listening to Walk the Pod is, when have you felt vulnerable? If you would share that with us, that would be a very powerful place to move on from, because nobody can question times when we have felt vulnerable. Perhaps you have made a change to your work, made a change to your family, set out on your own, doing something completely new. Maybe you have dismantled something which was keeping you afloat very nicely, but didn't serve your values, and so you have decided to do something different, and that new approach to life is not stable at all. Perhaps you've started a new business. Perhaps you have started a new role, or started a new relationship, or ended a relationship, or lost a loved one. Any of these times can be really vulnerable. We can feel really vulnerable, and we're not sure whether it'll ever feel more stable again. So if you would share some of that with me, then we can put the voice notes into the podcast and share them with our whole walking, thinking community of Walk the Pod. If you go to walkthepod.com, there is a button there which says leave a voice note for Walk the Pod, and if you press that, it will take you to SpeakPipe, and you will then have 90 seconds to record your beautiful voice on the topic of vulnerability. Tell us a bit about the last time you felt vulnerable, or a time you expect to feel vulnerable in the near future, and let's share some more of our stories. And then we can get into Brené Brown's research into vulnerability that she shares in Daring Greatly, what vulnerability means to her, and how it can be a really powerful tool against the armour that some of us wear every day. And we all wear different armour every day, and I think it's fair to say we all wear armour of some kind every day. And some of that armour is helpful, and some of it is actually holding us a little bit from the life that we want to lead. So we'll get into some of that this series. It's big stuff. It's big, profound stuff while we're walking around the park. So thank you for being prepared to think about it with me. What can I see directly in front of me? Well, I'm in the park and it's windy, as mentioned. The wind is blowing around the plane trees that are standing here in the Tooting Gardens Park in SW19, southwest London. The sun is shining. There are white clouds scudding through. Beautiful blue sky. There are pigeons nodding along on the grass, and there are one or two brave tots in the park who have braved the wind, come away from home with their parents, should say. And it's not the most beautiful day in the world because of the high wind, but apart from that, it's bright sunshine at least. And I can see an electric bike that's been left on the path here, and quite a lot of quite overgrown grass, which is good for nature. We just went on a bat walk, Sam and I, on Saturday evening. Heard from a fascinating speaker who's a bat expert, who works in Richmond Park and Bushy Park and other places around southwest London, and said it's much better if the park managers can leave the grass to be a bit long, because that way, the later it's left in the year before it's been cut, the more butterflies' eggs will be preserved, and moths and flies and insects and other things. And that, of course, is good for the bats. There's also a sign on this tree, lost wedding ring last week around Tooting Gardens, cash reward if found, and a phone number. So I am now, of course, scanning the ground, because if I find a wedding ring, then I shall call that number and save somebody's day, or make somebody's day, I think it's fair to say. So interesting times in the park. A mystery is unfolding. Thank you for walking with me. It's been an absolute delight to kick off this new series. It brings me such joy to start a new series of Walk the Pod with you, dear friends. Thank you for walking with me. Thank you for going to walkthepod.com, pressing the button marked leave a voice note for Walk the Pod, and 90 seconds of your beautiful voice and what vulnerability reminds you of in your own life. Give it a bit of thought. Have a little sleep on it this evening, and then when you wake up tomorrow, think, have I thought of a time when I felt vulnerable? If I really concentrate on when I felt vulnerable last, and then tell me about it, because I would love to share it with everybody and expand our understanding of this fascinating topic. Take care of your beautiful mind, yourselves, and each other, and I'll be back with episode 2 tomorrow.